Hello, hello. It's Katie, your alchemist. We are going to talk about exalting motherhood. Exalt means to hold in very high regard. So first I want to share kind of a prayer. And this is something that when Spirit asked me to start with this, I said, but that's so personal. That's for me and my mother. But every mother needs to hear this one. Motherhood, there is never a time when motherhood is not a gift. There is never a time when motherhood is not godly. There is never a time where motherhood is not by divine design. There is never a time where a soul did not choose you. There was never a time where that soul didn't want to be part of your template. There was never a time where you did motherhood wrong. There was never a time where you became a mother and it was wrong or apart from God. And a lot of you guys are going to say, yeah, I know, that's right. But here's the deal, right? I see and hear beliefs. I'm an aura alchemist. I can hear the level that you believe what you say, which so much of that is unconscious. I can see parts of your consciousness like compartments. So I want you to really get into your body and receive this today with a full body yes. Because there are fragments of yourself that was susceptible to influence and collective influence at times when you were not sure of yourself, at times when you were ashamed of yourself, at times where you cared more about what other people thought than what you thought of yourself, at times when you put other people's opinions over God and over your relationship with God. And it's those fragments of yourself and those compartments of yourself that I want to receive this fully. There is never a time where you can be a mother without God wanting you to be a mother and without that soul wanting you to be their mother. There is never a time when motherhood was anything but something to exalt, which means to hold in very high regard. So you can't condemn that mother over there and not experience the consequence in your own life, which is why this applies to mothers who are demonizing their mothers, mothers who are doing right when really they are in rebellion to the mother that they had. And so everything that they are creating, it is being created by the god of rebellion under the name of healing the bloodline. And actually they are installing the spirit of rebellion in their child and calling it generational evolution. And so when I say this to you, I'm speaking to the fragments of you as a mother and the fragments of you who are demonizing your mother. Because as long as you are demonizing your mother, you will pass on those demons to your child. You cannot compartmentalize those two things. Because God cannot be compartmentalized. And the very nature of metaphysics is that as you do one thing over here, you're always what we call quantum planting and quantum reaping. What that means is that your action in the physical is not necessarily about getting a result directly from that action in the physical, but it is about every action that I take drags energy or pulls energy, it moves energy, however you want to think of it, but it moves energy from the 5D or the ethereal or the spirit realm or the pre-existence or the meta into the actual, into the 3D, into the physical, whatever you want to call it, into the material plane. And so with every action, I create access points. And so the result of this thing that I reap over here, the reward or the consequence, the karmic consequence for that might show up over here. There is never a time where you have come from. Trauma is new. This is a new idea. It is a new westernized idea. And on top of that, please pay attention to even me. Every channel, and that includes you because you're also a channel in some way, shape, or form, whatever you call it. And we use many different contexts, right? Because I'm a channel as literally my calling, which isn't the same as you're a channel because you're a channel because you can hear from God, right? And yet you're a channel and I'm a channel. Okay. But please keep in mind, even when you are listening to other channels, that they cannot be compartmentalized from the human experience. What does that mean? Well, that means that they have what I call their psychic filter. There's actually there's two layers to this, okay? There is the mastery of being even able to recognize and hear and trust and receive and allow things to come through unfiltered. That is the language of God. And that's not instant. That's not a formula or a check sheet. I have to get to know God. I have to get to know how God moves and how God thinks and how God talks, so that I even can recognize what is God or not when I am channeling, and what is godly and what serves God. Because I can channel anything. Just because I'm channeling it doesn't mean it's godly, which is the paradox. But everything is godly. That's the paradox. Everything is godly, and there is God and there is ungodly. Don't get lost, because I can only teach so much in a 45-minute period. So there's that layer. I have to know God to be a good channel. And then no matter what, as a human, what I channel through, what I hear God through, is going to distort what I hear. Distortion is a part. You're never going to, no matter how pure it is, and I just let you know, and again, me included, no matter how pure it is, my channeling is subject to my values, my judgments, my fears, my biases, my preconceived notions, my path of least resistance, and we actually have broken up the path of least resistance into, there's at least 5 different components of the path of least resistance. I don't have time to get into that right now. And so, no matter how amazing somebody's channeling is, if they are not working on their human psychic filter, then those things are going to inform on it. And there's not even anything wrong with that informing on it. It's about the self-awareness. Okay. Another sign, by the way, just as a side note, before we move on, right? You know, one way you know that you're a channel, like a real channel, like a real deal channel, if your channelings piss you off, if they change you, if they reveal you, if you disagree with them while it's coming through, if your channels are always affirming you and never challenging you, then they're not really channelings. Or you're channeling at such a low level, it's too dense because you haven't grown and evolved enough. Now, that's why, well, then what's the difference between a master if there's always human filters? Somebody who gets to know their human filters and their own self-deception, and gets to know so deeply their own core template that they can recognize how their core template is influencing on a channel. And so the next thing that makes a channel better is being able to remove that and separate that, because the better they know themselves and understand that this is the template they come from, the better that they can see how that template is influencing things, and they can remove themselves from the channeling. And so then that's another layer. I guess, what is that? That's technically 3 or 4 layers we've named, right? So side note, bam, bam, bam. That matters because you guys are crowdsourcing, and some crowdsourcing is okay, by the way. But the problem with that is it's like trying to follow 5 different religions. You're copying and pasting a bunch of different pieces and roots. You're trying to be 5 kinds of religious, and you're like a born-again Christian in 8 different religions at the same fucking time. Trying to go from 0 to expert and get this religion and this doctrine for dummies right quick, and then move on. Copy pasting collecting, copy, pasting, collecting. And so then I also want to say another thing about this. And this is matter. Why does this matter? Because all of this, the reason why we're asking, because I thought I was going to talk about this separately, and I said it has to be talked about today because we're talking about exalting motherhood. And one of the things that affects exalting motherhoods is that there are some channelings happening right now by some master channelers and master teachers. And they're not wrong, but that doesn't escape where they're called to channel from, which brings us to another layer. Because when you're called to bring an aspect of something in, and you're called to bring this forward, actually it's important that you only come from one context. So a lot of master teachers who it's like you're reading it and it's so black and white and it feels so sharp. It needs to be, because they're bringing a pure piece of something, and they could not bring that thing unfiltered and undiluted into the world for you to put in the context and nuance of where it applies to you, without first being so fucking filled with that thing that it's all they see. And so it's not that they're distorted or wrong, it's that they're doing their job by bringing this one singular purified aspect in such plain black and white language that aspect itself cannot be diluted, so that you can look at that aspect as individualized and as potent as possible with no other distortion. And so they're not wrong, right? Which is why sometimes when I see people speak on something and I'm like, that's completely preposterous in my reality. And yet, because I can see so clearly who you are called to be and what aspect you are called to hold and reflect, I would absolutely expect you to take that perspective. You can't hold what you're holding in purity and take any other perspective, because you have to hold the pole of what you're holding. And that doesn't make you wrong or a cult leader or whatever. It just means that you're holding the piece that you're supposed to hold. Pure, unfiltered, undiluted. This is my piece. I deliver it, and then the world is going to take it and put it where it belongs for them. And they're going to take that piece, put it in the puzzle. And that matters. Never mind the fact that there is only one God, and yet we all have our own God. Paradox. There is only one God, and yet you have your God, and I have mine. And we're not supposed to have the same God. We're not supposed to be leading people to the same universe, or the same karmic bloodline, or the same string of lifetimes. That's why I'm so serious about the way that I speak, because God has required me that I speak my truth as the truth. That is the only way to protect what is mine to deliver in my reality, because nobody else can speak what the truth is in my reality but me. I cannot allow that to be diluted. That's not me telling you what it is. I'm speaking what it is here. It's your business what you take for you and how you apply it and what you do with it in your life. I'm not trapping you. I'm not locking you somewhere. Take what you fucking need, right? Take the meat, spit out the bones, go forth. That's how it's supposed to be. So I'm very unapologetic. That's why I'm quick to tell you, she's a cult. Abso-fucking-lutely I am. And when you look at the definition of a cult, yes. By the way, that delusion's been so lost, blah, blah, blah. Now, if you mean cult as in I'm suppressing somebody and you can't question me, no. Just say, I'm literally just holding my pole over here. Come study my doctrine. Ask questions to understand, but no, you cannot question my doctrine. You're not qualified to do so. Fuck out of here. If you can't handle me coming and questioning everything about you, what the fuck? Please don't mind these people who have been called by ungodly things to put you on dummy missions that will dilute you and dilute your message and take you off the path that is yours to deliver and only yours. Stop opening your mind to unqualified people. Again, that might seem unrelated, but it's really not. Because we're clearing up energetic debris for you here. There are prayers running in the background for you in this live today. And because the motherhood conversation is so very loud, you can't compartmentalize yourself from what's going on in the world. Even if you don't read the words, it's so loud in the energetic and psychic debris. It's so loud that we have to talk about this on every layer, because you can't bypass being human, and it does have an impact on you, and it does have an impact on your children. That's why being silent in your own reality is dangerous. Being silent and calling it mind your business is dangerous, actually. Okay. So just notice as you feel this. I know you're feeling truths in your body right now. I know you are. You're like, oh wow, you're right. Before I knew who I was, I let this stuff influence me a lot. I let it inform on the way that I moved and the way that I thought about myself. So even my attempts at being a good mom were running away from shame, running away from being a stereotype. Even my attempts at being a better human were about running away from being from a terrible bloodline. There's no such thing as a terrible bloodline. That's a very new age concept, and it's a very colonized concept. Yep, no exceptions. It's a colonized concept. It is a colonized concept that has only been furthered by this new psychology era. Let's just call it this new era that we're in, the era of psychology. And now we've got psychology mixing with spiritual development, right? Because things are losing meaning. We are diluting everything. We're throwing everything into a muddy pool. We are making a mess. We're making the worst tasting soup in the world right now with all of these things. So the very concept and idea that your bloodline can be broken or traumatized or wounded is a colonized concept that has now been further made worse and put into distortion in the post-psychological era. Shamans, and you guys keep wanting to we need to bring back the ancestors. Well, the ancestors didn't believe in trauma. And they didn't have such a concept of self that they even had the type of thought processes where they were walking around with unknown trauma, because they weren't creating it with their self-concept. Because even our self-concept today, by its very nature, has a tendency to create and affirm the idea that we can be broken or traumatized constantly. How is this relating to exalting motherhood? Well, it's so crucial that you understand this so that you don't pass these distortions on to your kids as a mom, and that you don't pass this on to other people's kids as a human, having a shared human experience with other humans. So what's happening right now? You're self-internalized, and let's be really honest. I want you to just do an honest look, not a judgmental look, because everything is healable. You can literally heal into the past, present, and future now. You can merge timelines now. But right now, there are many mothers who are being inundated with shame about motherhood, single motherhood, broken motherhood, wrong motherhood, whatever reason. Shame around motherhood. Voila. And by internalizing that internalization of self-hatred has been passed on to the womb. The conversations right now that you're having about motherhood, nobody, by the way, there's not a single person listening to this right now. I'm never talking to general people. I'm talking to the people listening. I always tap into the people who are listening to this fucking live that need to hear this right fucking now. Okay? Your kids are picking up this collective degree. You can't compartmentalize from that. Even if you keep them from home, it is law. So right now, your children, even as you talk about that this other child is worthless, and this person is worthless, and they're worthless if, la 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 la, children are picking up these conversations right now, constantly. They're inundated with it. Inundated with the disrespect, the constant disrespect of motherhood as a whole, and the shame of motherhood, and being told constantly that their mothers are worthless, and being taught the idea that there's no way that they can listen to the colonization in this, that there's no way that they can be elevated past their born privilege and their born class. They're being told that if this is where you were born, this is the class you belong in, and this is the best that you're allowed to have, and this is the best that you'll ever hope for, and you're not worth it, and you can never enter a high part of fucking society. How is that not colonization? You tell me how the fuck that is not a result of the mindset of colonizers being called spiritual law and higher knowledge. And if you're this type of kid, if you're this type of mother, you're not deserving of this type of treatment and this type of marriage. What are you telling them? That to just lay down and die? How is that godly? Especially if you are somebody who understands that you're creating reality and that nothing happens without God permission. Did you really break out of your religious upbringing? Or did it just change format and it just changed shape and you just change your fucking words, but the spirit is just the same? Because you sound like a white Christian British feudalist lord, no matter what your fucking skin color looks like, walking around with your single motherhood Bible. Alexander Hamilton was a bastard and basically also a slave from the Caribbean, slave class. What do you think would have happened? He married to a well-to-do family. That wife created the first orphanage. She did so fucking much. She held his legacy. She took it to she took it generations that is carried today. He is immortalized today because of his wife and his offspring. And he was a bastard. So please don't listen to these people telling you that you're stuck with blah, 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 trauma, wounded, blah, 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 blah. As if you know the value of somebody else's life based off some outward appearances and some contracts and whatever, as if that guarantees a clean and good template. And as if you actually really know the altogether value of those bloodlines or the experiences that God wants to have. The audacity, the arrogance, the hubris. So there's never a time that your template does not have value. However, your job in your evolution as a human is to uncover and uncomplicate and remove the distortion and evolve the shadow and do the work so that all that is left is the core template. And so on that note, I'll share what I said to my mother today. I called my mom and I said, "Hey, Mom, I want you to know that almost every day I catch myself remembering something, just a random memory. You making me a meal when you were depressed and in bed and you got up and you made sure I was fed. And I didn't know what it took for you to feed me every day, no matter what, at the same time every day. My whole life. I never had to know anything else, no matter what else was going on, because I've removed everything else. I've done the work, and all that's left is the template. That's not where you're at yet. Keep going. That's not only unique to me, this is what the work looks like. And it happens layer by layer. So how do you know that you've really uncovered the work? You can't find anything but blessings. And when the memories come up, because the memory changes every time you touch it, by the way. The memory changes every time you touch it. So if you keep touching a memory in your own traumatized state with your current distortions, you will keep distorting the memory. And by the way, your memory has value because your imagination is real on a timeline and a dimension at all times. So you are connecting to traumatic, whatever you want to call it, timelines. When you insist on reattaching and recreating a memory from your distorted, victimized, whatever lens. But since I don't have that anymore, these memories come up, and I swear, and it brings me to tears every time, because I think, wow. Every minute of every day, my mom was a mom. It doesn't matter what, nothing else is relevant to me anymore, because I only have the template. I literally only have the template. It's not, there's nothing left but blessings and keys. And so I said, every day I think, wow, thank you for being a human and a mom. And no matter how hard it was to be human, you showed up every day and you did basic mom things. Thank you so much. Every day you got up to be a mom. Ooh. Especially again, because now I'm a human. So now I can think about, wow, there were times that my mom was really struggling and she never showed that to me. And guess what? I'm adopted and my mom was adopted. And we shared lots of distortions. But it's my job to clear it, because when you have a child, you agree to share a template and you're both working on the bloodline. It's not one or the other. It's not this person's supposed to do this for me and you fucked up, because your soul saw into the past, present, and future. It saw every pattern, even if that pattern wasn't displaying in the way that it started to display when you were 12 or whatever. The pattern that later became a physical expression of whatever happened was always there. And the soul knew that and saw that and said, that's what I want. Not, ooh, I guess I'll take it from you so I can get my great-great-grand. No exceptions. You took on the whole bloodline and said, yes, this is the template. This is the work. This is what I want to take on. I want the curses. I want the blessings. I want the debt. I want the credit. I want the privilege. I want the disadvantages. I want all of that. You can't really exalt your child while demonizing your mother. And guess what? Whatever your mom did to you, you're not special. You don't understand, but my mom was human just like every other mom. The day I told you, when you're healed and whole, I had a message. I said, when you're healed and whole, people will assume that you lack experience, and to take that as a confirmation that you're healed and whole, because you don't look like the fire you've gone through. You don't smell like the fire you walked through. So people come to me now and they think, wow, it's very obvious that you had a healthy, wonderful upbringing. It makes me giggle. You have no idea. And it's not your business. And I'm not going to say anything. Why? Because it's not relevant to me anymore. I have nothing to prove to you. I have nothing to defend. I did the work. And all I've been left with is the template. Your template has value. You just have to do the work. And guess what? Just because you were grown, just because you grew up in a family where maybe there was no quote unquote traumatic or intense events according to how we define trauma and intense events, and how we define stability and how we define value as a collective at this current time, doesn't mean that you are without this work. It does not mean that you are without distortion and without shadows, especially because you took on your whole timeline. So even if your parents appear on the outside to be stable at this current point in time in this collective, what does that mean? What, you have money and you have some good relationships? Like, how are you defining stability? You got a nice house and what, you're a politician? Like, how are you defining stability? That does not bypass you or make you more valuable or make you more sound or make you more logical. And this is law. I ask questions, y'all. Another sign of a good channel. I look into stuff. I look to be corrected. I ask more questions. I sit. I don't just get an idea and then just pop in front of you. I think. Nope. Wherever you give less value to life, there is a karmic consequence in your personal life. Wherever you give less value to motherhood in whatever context that you put it in, there's a karmic consequence to that in your personal life. It's crucial that you do the work to recover your template as a mom. Now, don't put that off on your kid. Well, I'm just going to make the sacrifices so that my kid can do the work. No. Your work's not done until you're dead. Your purpose isn't done until you're dead. So I can stop squinting. Lord, ooh, it's bright out here. You don't just have generational curses, you have generational blessings, and your perception of what a curse is very limited because you don't have the eyes of God. So trying to point out what is a curse and what is a blessing is useless. All that's important is that you recover the template and see the highest version of that template and see the highest key and see the highest blessing. And you cannot be blessed by that which you demonize. It is law. So it's much more important to focus on how you can find the blessing than what the truth is, especially because the truth can change with every shift, with every close and gap, with every quantum leap, with every change in dimension and timelines and possibilities and realities. As long as you focus on what is true and being right, you're going to miss the chance to be transported and shifted into something that doesn't resemble this reality anymore. which is what manifestation should really be about. You're thinking too small. If you're thinking about manifestation as I'm gonna, create $10, I'm gonna create $1,000, you're creating a small little tiny resource or a piece of energy that's very limited, that isn't changing who you are, therefore changing how you experience things. And it's like trying to manifest a tool instead of manifesting the house. And if you really want to think bigger, it's like thinking about that resource is like being in a fishbowl. If you want to step out into a bigger atmosphere, you say you want to experience more magic, but even the way you see magic, it's like a little tiny pinhole in your reality. You've got to open up bigger. There's entire atmospheres. There's entire, like, one possibility could be your way to a whole universe, but you are literally tied to this timeline with every lack of forgiveness that you have. Lack of forgiveness keeps you tied to this timeline. It's like a weight. You can't quantum leap that way. And you can't quantum leap, by the way, by making it a point to quantum leap. Quantum leap can only be a byproduct. Enlightenment can only happen as a byproduct. Ascension can only happen as a byproduct. The very nature of focusing on it puts it farther away from you. That's the paradox. Even doing soul work in order to get a result, which is why the marketing industry has actually done a very big disservice to the spiritual industry, and so has coaching as well. The distortion of the coaching industry has caused spiritual facilitators to fall into teaching from a lens and distorting their own teachings and being unconsciously dishonest and actually creating a space where people are being manipulative with the universe, and they're even being marketed and advertised that they can do this to get that. And the very nature of operating that way in the universe guarantees that you won't actually change to get the result, which is why you keep saying, I keep doing the work, but nothing's changing. I keep doing the work, but nothing's changing. I keep doing the work. I don't understand. I'm not getting this result. It's because you've been doing it to get that result. So by its very nature, it's dishonest. And by its very nature, you're trying to control, right? Because the intention and the spirit of trying to control this. And so you're acting like, and you're doing, and you're practicing, and you're transacting, and you're using, but you're not, but your spirit isn't changing. And your being isn't changing. And that's why you're so tired, and you're like, I've tried everything and nothing's working. It's because of how you're doing it. It's because you're being transactional. It's because you're doing it to get a result. And you're trying to control that result. And that result, again, is like a pinhole in what is truly possible in your universe. It's what you think is going to bring you fulfillment. It's what you think is going to give you purpose. It's what you think is going to make you happy. It's the only way that your limited, tiny, small, uncultivated imagination that's been so fucking warped by logic and societal expectation, and it's literally atrophied because of the lack of care that you have given it, because you are so busy mastering on worst case scenarios, and you refuse to even dream uncensored in your own very fucking mind, because that's how addicted you are to practical and logical scenarios, that even what you're trying to create that you think is possible is beyond limiting, which is why you're much better off finding a better barometer so that God can give you something way better than what you're capable of thinking about. If you want to understand more about manifestation, the Initiate's Codex is open, and this is where I'll be channeling about these types of things for a long time, for a long time. So if you want to join, you can join me there. I also have the Free Woman membership for women. That's open now. I have a lot of guest speakers coming. We get to have conversations. You get to ask me questions on all things feminine and get support there. We actually have a motherhood class coming up from two people who I hold in very high regard, which is China Parker and Marissa Williams. They're both mentors for mothers. They're amazing. They'll be teaching a class next week. No, this week. Oh my God, time flies. So if you want to join the Free Woman before that, it's month to month, cancel anytime membership. You can reach out for information, DM me, or comment Free Woman. I'll comment to you, blah, 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 blah. If you're interested in Initiate's Codex, you can comment that. All my mentorship spaces are open, and you can join now if you feel called. I will take this down eventually. You can also subscribe. So I'm going to be doing a lot more lives, and then I'll be putting them down, and then I'll be making them available to subscribers. I think my subscription on Facebook is only $2 a month or something. It made me choose it in pesos, so I don't know. It's something. I think it's 199 or something. Welcome. A lot of keys were given here. Join us, Ray says. It's a good spot. Sniper just did a guest spot, and he had so much fun. He offered to come again. Albahika asked when he'll be coming back. So we have such a good space that the men are like serving there, love being of service there. As I'm so lucky, we're so lucky that I'm surrounded by such awesome men. So Gregory Nowak is speaking. Brandon Marshall is going to be speaking. Sniper's coming back. Almahika's coming back. Matt Smith, there's 2 calls from Matt Smith already available to there. There's my teachings on there. I'm going to be doing a group coaching on the metaphysics of weight in June as well. There's monthly teachings and content being added all the time. It's a good community. It's a safe, private, sacred, protected space that I manage very well. I'd love to have you there. So yeah, it's worth its weight in gold. Yeah. Yep. I'll be sharing testimonies about that and blah, 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 blah. Okay, how does everybody feel? Yes. They love us because we are committed to growing ourselves. Absolutely. And it's because of the way that you guys carry yourselves and the way that you guys ask questions and how receptive you are and how respectful you are, that the men have come once and offered to come again and been so generous and enjoyed themselves and loved the women in that space. It's a wonderful, intimate gathering. And it's been complete and full. And there's just so many keys there. Yeah, I wish I had more time to take my own classes while channeling the classes. Let's see. I took notes on some of those coaching calls. While I listened. Okay, I'm glad everybody feels complete and whole here. Everybody says they feel complete and whole here. Good. We give pauses on purpose, by the way, because even when I'm silent, we're moving energy. We're supporting your sitting and steeping in this energy. There's a few collective patterns with motherhood that we need to take responsibility for. Removing a man's right to the child when it's inside your body is why, energetically speaking, in your reality, you're experiencing men who don't feel connected to their child when they come out of the womb. I don't want to overwhelm you guys with a lot of different dynamics here, but we're experiencing these types of we're experiencing this, all of us. None of us are apart from this. We're experiencing these types of the metaphysical consequence. If you experience in your own life, it's happening on the micro level in your own life, and the macro level being amplified through the collective. And so, and always seek, if I'm seeing it, there's a seed of that in some way, shape, or form in me. So I can see that, and the above is of the below. The below is of the above. And always think about like polarity with these things, like a scale. Put this on one scale, right? What pops up on the other side? What rises to the surface as a result? You wanted men to disconnect from their responsibility and rights and privileges over the baby, and then you wanted to flip it on like a switch later. That's not how it works. Not karmically, not universally, not personally, not psychologically. You can't tell them when to care and when they matter and when they get to play a part of creation. The reason that that's not a good question, Lauren, is because you're traversing timelines all the time. Even seeing it as a problem is a problem, technically. It just is. There's the dysfunction is, shadow is, disorder is, imbalance is. The answer is correct the balance in your, no matter what's happening, the solve is radical responsibility. Not just in how can I, if I'm radically responsible, I'm not burdening society. The more radically responsible I am, the less I'm burdening society, the more I'm benefiting society just from being myself. The more power I have over my reality, which means my reality changes anyways because my reality reflects me. So then now I'm experiencing reality where these problems are getting better because I'm getting better. All right, and I'm going to go keep working and utilize the frequencies of the space. And I love you very much. Happy Mother's Day. Bye. And please share. Sharing is caring. Your comments and your likes matter, not just on this, but all over my timeline in this world where, where we're competing with celebrity trash and gossip and sludge and whatever. What you engage with matters. What you stop and look at like matters. What you stop and read matters. So not just on this comment, but in everywhere, not just to me, but other people who are really being courageous and offering you meat and offering you a chance to elevate. Stop and say thank you, like and comment. It helps the right things be seen. Speaking of how to contribute to the collective, be somebody who focuses on elevation in all senses of the word. Okay, so go comment and engage with and participate in elevated realities, elevated ideas, elevated conversation, and people whose messages matter. Say thank you often. Frequently. It takes a second. If you benefited from something and it gave you an idea that bettered your life, stop. Say thank you. Love you. Bye.